Hi everybody. Okay, in this video we're going to be having a look at Elizabeth I and what she did to religion compared to Mary. Okay, now Elizabeth is the final Tudor monarch, and she reigns from 1558 when she is 25 years old to 1603. Okay, so she has a really long reign compared to the rest of the Tudor monarchs that we've had a look at, and indeed compared to a lot of monarchs. She lives into her 60s, which is really old for the time, and she faces a lot of turmoil, a lot of resistance against her in her reign for a number of different reasons, partly because she's a woman, partly because she's so young, partly because of her religion. Now, I have done a number of videos already focusing on Elizabeth, so if you want to have a look at into Elizabeth and her background, there is a video dedicated to Elizabeth and her life, her reign, her background. There is also 3 videos dedicated to Elizabeth and her problems, where I go into religion quite a lot in one of those videos. But today we're going to have a look at it in the context of the Reformation and what she actually did in a little bit more detail when she came to the throne. So Elizabeth is a Protestant, okay, first and foremost. Personally, she's a Protestant. She was brought up with Edward, so she has been educated in the same vein as him. Now, what Elizabeth wants to do is to achieve a middle way. She has seen what happened with Mary when she was in control and came down really heavily on the side of Catholicism. And Elizabeth herself was actually involved or accused of being involved in a rebellion called Wyatt's Rebellion, where somebody tried to replace, well, Wyatt tried to replace Mary with Elizabeth, and this actually resulted in Elizabeth being sent to the Tower of London, which was a prison. Okay, so what she witnessed this, she was a part of this. She also witnessed Bloody Mary being so angry with the Protestants that she actually executed around 374 Protestants. She's seen what the Reformation did in terms of her father and her mother's marriage, in terms of his ability to divorce, to remarry, and she doesn't want to get involved in all of this. She doesn't want people to have to decide between whichever religion they wanted to be. Officially, the country, she wanted it to be Protestant, but she was very determined to find this middle way. Okay, so the church is being split. I've made this point quite a bit in the last video. We now do have 2 very different camps. Okay, we don't have anymore in England everybody being one religion or the other. So what Elizabeth does is very smart, really. She gives everybody the opportunity to be able to worship in the way that they want. What she says is, I am Protestant, the country is Protestant. However, if you want to worship, you can worship, but in private. Okay, you are allowed to worship if you are Catholic. If you are Protestant, that is what the church is going to be, so you can worship in the churches. Now, you might think that this is going to suit everybody, which in theory it should. However, we do have 2 groups of people who don't. Now, who it doesn't suit. Now, the people who it doesn't suit are the strict worshippers on either side. So on the Catholic side, we've got the Jesuits, who are very strict Catholics. And on the Protestant side, we have the Puritans. Okay, now what these 2 believe is that their way of worshipping is correct, which means they are not happy with the middle way. They are not happy with Protestants. Sorry, the Jesuits are not happy with the Protestants being able to worship. The Puritans are not happy with the Catholics being able to worship. What these two believe is that their way is the correct way and it should be the only way, okay? Puritans want Catholicism to be completely wiped out, and Jesuits want the Protestant religion to be completely wiped out, okay? It should be one or the other, and it should be their way. This means for Elizabeth, there is a lot of problems, because particularly from the Catholics, there becomes a lot of plots to replace Elizabeth with a Catholic monarch, and they actually have a suitable candidate who is eligible for the throne, which is Elizabeth's cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. Okay, I'm not going to go into Mary, Queen of Scots very much more than just telling you who she is in this video, because we don't have time. But as I said, there is a video dedicated to plots on Elizabeth, and you can feel free to go and watch that. Okay, so let's have a look then at our information about Elizabeth and what Elizabeth does. So 5 years after Mary is crowned, a very, very short reign, so a lot of change in a very short period of time, and then again it gets changed again. She is replaced by Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, so she's a product of the Reformation. The reason that Henry VIII was able to marry Anne Boleyn was because he changed the church. So she was a Protestant, but she is not as strict as Edward, which is important. She is happy, not so much happy, but she's tolerant of Catholics worshipping. She'd seen how being too strict had caused problems for both of Edward and Mary, and she wants to create a middle way to keep both sides happy, which, as we've just mentioned, probably isn't going to be realistic. So the church is now Protestant. The Queen is the head of the church again. So the Protestant prayer book and English Bible. So we've gone back from Latin again back to English. So we've got 5 years of Latin, then we're going back to English. Church services must be Protestant. Statues again are not allowed, they're banned again, they must be removed, but people can still raise money for the church. So we had a look at this in I think it was the Edward video, but I'm going to just leave it up there again for us to have another quick look and a recap at what the difference between Protestantism and Catholicism is. Okay, so the Bible is in English in Protestantism, Catholic in Latin in Catholic. Plain simple clothes, highly decorated clothes. The Queen, in this case, head of the church, the Pope being the head of the church. And then again, very, very similar going down. We've got simple on the Protestant side and we've got more elaborate on the Catholic side. Okay, they're the main differences. God is the common denominator, but the ways that they worship and the makeup of the churches physically is what's different about these two religions. So I'm going to just put up here a little task. Now, at this point, if you feel that you'd like to have a go at this, you can pause the video and have a look at this and have a read of each of these statements and just see which category you will put it into. So the P stands for Protestant, the B stands for both, and the C stands for Catholic. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an opportunity to read through this and have a go. You can just like make yourself a little chart if you want to and write it down, or you can just do it in your head. So I'll just give you an opportunity now to pause the video and have a look at this, and I'll go through it. Okay, so if you did have a look and a little pause at that, we'll go through it now and see what you've put and see whether we agree. So Elizabeth's religious settlement. Now she comes up with her religious settlement in 1559. Okay, so she's crowned in 1558, and her religious settlement is one of the first things that she does when she's crowned, because she needs to establish which religion she's going to follow and what everybody now is expected to do in terms of worship. So the Queen would rule as supreme governor. Now the key word here is governor, not head, governor of the Church of England, and she is going to be supported by the bishops. Okay, now this one's a little bit of both, because even though she gets rid of the Pope, she does have the support of the bishops, and she's not calling herself the head. Okay, she's sort of doing like a halfway thing. She isn't ruling it by herself, but she has still got rid of the Pope. So some church courts that give powers to the church would remain. Now again here, the word here is some. So again, this is a little bit of both. We've got elements of both religions in here. There should be limits on what preachers who preach in English from the Bible could say. Now this one is more Protestant. There should be no mass, so the ceremony where the bread and wine become the body and the blood of Christ. Now if we have a look up here, the mass is Catholic, so if she bans the mass, that's definitely Protestant. Church services and the prayer book should be in English, that one is Protestant. Saints should receive no special prayers, that one is Protestant. Churches should be decorated, and some ceremonies should be allowed, but not too much. This one is more Catholic. And then bright robes should be allowed. If we remember our picture looking at the two different makeups of the churches, if you've watched the Mary and Edward videos, that is more Catholic. So even though she does slightly come down on the side of Protestant, we do actually have elements of Catholicism in 4 areas. Okay, now compared to what Edward did, that's very lenient, okay, which means it's very sort of forgiving to the Catholics. She does allow them to worship in private. So we do have a slight balance in terms of what Elizabeth offers, but as she gets older and as plots against her do get more sort of frequent and more serious, she brings in rules against Catholics. Now in the 1580s, these rules become much more severe. So because by this point there's been a number of rebellions against her, we've had, for example, the 1569, we've got the Northern Rebellion against Elizabeth to try and replace her with Mary Queen of Scots. In 1571, we've got the Ridolfi plot, again to kill Elizabeth and replace her. So the more the Catholics are trying to kill her, funnily enough, the harsher she becomes on them. So in the 1580s, we do have a number of measures that Elizabeth brings in that mean that Catholics aren't treated as kindly. So we have fines. Okay, she actually bans Catholics from worshipping in private, and that she says you have to go to Protestant churches and services, and if you don't, there will be fines. And these fines were up to £20. Now to us that does not sound like a lot of money, but in those days it was I'm not sure how much, but a lot of money for us. Like, we're talking probably in the tens of thousands of pounds that people just could not have afforded. So up to £20 for not going to Protestant churches. She bans rosary beads, which are the beads that Catholics use to worship, they use to pray. So she bans the prayer beads. And these this is a real stamp down on Catholicism now. It's to say, look, I've tried to be nice to you, I've tried to allow you to have your own way, but you've just taken it for granted. And she actually went as far as banning Catholics from traveling more than 5 miles from their home. Okay, and you might be thinking, wow, that's a bit extreme. It is a bit extreme, but the reason that she did that was because the Catholics were going meeting up with other people. It was so that they couldn't band together and form groups that plotted against her. So she starts off by trying to find a middle way, but actually, if we had a look at what her religious outlook is towards the end of her reign, she's definitely more on the side of Protestant. And the man who comes after her, King James, is a Protestant as well. And that is sort of a result of all of the things that Elizabeth has been through and had to put up with as a queen. And this middle way, because of the extremes on both sides, just didn't work for Elizabeth. Okay, so we'll leave that video there. If you have only watched that video in this series, I have covered from Henry. We've done Henry, we've done Edward, we've done Mary, and then we've done Elizabeth, and we've given an overview of how the Reformation changed religion and then how each of the Tudor monarchs followed on from that and their own take on religion in the time. It was a massive, massive period of instability because it was within 10, 12 years, religion changed so much, and the people of the country really had to get their head around how that was going to affect them. So the Reformation had a massive impact on the country. So hopefully you've enjoyed exploring the Tudor monarchs a little bit more. Do go and have a look at those videos on Elizabeth to give you a bit more insight into those plots and how Elizabeth managed those. So thanks very much for tuning in, everybody, and I will see you again soon.